Welcome everyone to this week's video. Sorry it's a bit late. I tried to film after the festival on Friday and it was raining, and I tried to film on Saturday and it's raining again, so I've just got on the bank now, a little local pond behind me just as a little backdrop. And what I want to do is talk to you about the summer festival at Weston Pools. So it's a 2-day event, just for people that don't know. Run over section points this time, so it's different to the Weightmaster, which is a month before, which was on weight, and this time it's on section points. So the big sections, your lakes, so they're like 60 to 15 peg sections, so you really need to draw well but make the most of your pegs. Sometimes when you get a peg that's not so good, you need to make the most of it and get as many points as you can, and this comes into my second day, but I'll go through that first of all. So the first day I've drew absolute dolly, probably one of the best pegs I could have drawn, 34 on the clay pit. Now I'll just put this little, show you the peg here now. As you can see, the peg now, it's got a nice margin in between the pallets. It's really flat there, comes out for about 2 foot, and it's probably about 2 foot deep, so it's really good for ground bait down the edge. Then as you come round, you've got a big open water to fish shallow into, good short line, and then as it comes to the right, you've got some reeds, but don't really fish down to your right because there's a lot of reed cover and you can't get it really tight into the edge. It's like 4 or 5 foot deep that way, so I choose not to fish that way. Now I've been on the clay pit a lot. Last time I fished Weston was over a month ago, and I was on the clay pit 3 times in the 3 times I fished it, so I get a lot of practice in on this. I know a lot about the methods I've talked about before, and it was a weird old day. The first day of the festival, and the lake was full of great anglers. Don't get me wrong, I was probably on the best peg, so pressure's on, need to win the lake. But you had Richie O'Connor on peg 2, Bob Giles, Carl McCormack, Kerry Kirkwood on peg 8. Then you had Andy Mann, Christian Jones, my good mate, Danny Humphries, my good mate on there. John Liff next to me, who's won a festival before there. So it's not an easy, just because I've drawn this peg, a lot of people, you can have it just because the fly, it's not a done deal. But young Rob Swan was in there as well. Now the day, there was a wind blowing across me down towards the bottom bank, so say peg 22 to 24, around that area. And normally the fish don't follow the wind that much on that venue. You can get away with catching shallow a lot of places. Don't get me wrong, you can only catch shallow if the wind's coming that way, and vice versa for the other end. So, but 34 holds a lot of resident fish, you saw all right here. So plan of attack was to fish cast shallow at 13 metres, start on short pellets on just on a top kit. You can get a really good run there, and then feed some ground bait down the edge. So started off fishing, I had 1 fish short on pellets, and I've not caught a great deal. A month before, when I was on this peg, I caught loads short on pellets, and I thought, it's strange really. There's a lot of carp, like 4 to 5 pound, that live in that area, and you can catch them quick early and then go shallow, then drop back and catch them again. But never caught them, and then looking around the lake, no one really caught. So it seemed to be the case that like there was no carp feeding, so I thought, right, fair enough. I've gone shallow, caught the odd fish, like it wasn't terrific, wasn't one a bung, wasn't putting mass in the butt. I ticked over nicely, I was still in contention, and Kerry Kirkwood opposite me was catching really well, but it turned out his fish were smaller, but he's catching really well. And this is what I want to talk about. When he was catching, I was thinking I'm behind, and then I'm rushing my peg, making decisions over someone else's peg. And what I should have done is just fish my match and carried on plodding over, knowing the confidence that I've got on the lake to get by. Now, I spoke about this in past videos before, where the fish come really shallow, and I was catching the odd fish on a jigger, and then the odd fish like 30 inches deep when I seen a little movement on my jigger. And then with about an hour and a half, 2 hours to go, the fish have come really high, that 8-inch deep again. I've caught them just slapping my rig constantly, feeding constantly, and catching these big F1s. Now, when you catch them at this 8-inch deep, they're really big. They're like 3 to 4 pound average, so you can put a big weight together, and I've caught there to the end of the match. Now, what was really strange, I never caught down that edge or on that short line, and a few people around the lake did catch on that short line. Now, hit the weigh, and I thought Kerry had beat me, I'd have put my money on it the Kerry beat me because of the amount of fish he'd caught. But when we weighed him in, there'd been a lot smaller stamp and he's had 165 pounds. So I'm thinking, I've got a chance of beating him here. So I've weighed in 171 pounds, bigger stamp fish. Probably had half the amount of fish he's had. And luckily enough, that won the lake, won the match. So good start to the festival. But I just want to touch on that subject. If you can't go with someone else is catching in the peg, don't get too distracted by it. We can all get done by this. I've fished many matches before. I bet there's people that fish more matches than me, and it's still, you can get in your head by someone catching a few fish just messes your match up. I'm going to try and improve my fishing. Just stay focused on my match. Stop looking at what other people have catching. Yeah, of course you need to learn about where they're catching. Are they catching short? Are they catching shallow? Are they catching in the edge yet? But not be too concentrated on how many they're catching, because a lot of times it's deceiving. You see them catch 5, but then you catch 4 and then they've caught nothing in that time. So that's just one little tip I want to give out that I've learned myself, lesson learned. So moving on to the second day now. Now this is where I went from hero to zero in the draw bag, but I've drew 28 in the clay pit. Now my good mate Christian drew this the day before and did really well to come 6th on the lake, to be fair. He fished really well that day. Now, history on the pit, the first day is always brilliant, but the second day it just drops off a little bit, and normally you can scrape in with a little bit lower weight. Now if you just look at the peg here now, to my left there's a bush, so I can't really go to my left at all. Then I'm set back in a little bay, and then there's like a point that's 16 metres out in front. You fish up the bank there, it's about 5 foot deep up to that point, so it's still quite deep. So speaking to Chris, he said he caught a lot of carp short, probably 90 pounds short on casters, and then the odd fish shallow. He said he didn't catch up the bank, but with it in mind, with the festival being on points, now I had my good friend Kieran, Christian was on the lake as well, Richie O'Connor was back on the lake. There's a lot of good people on the lake again, and I thought this fish is a bit harder, which I need it to do to get good points off 28. Now I'm thinking top 3 on the lake's achievable if I have a nice steady match, decisions go my way and I don't be too erratic and go for it, just trying to blast it shallow and stuff like that. So I did something a bit different. I chopped some worms up, put them in some ground bait with some casters, and I fished that up the bank. Now the reasoning behind this was I wanted just to get some bites middle of the match. When I couldn't catch shallow, I had nowhere else to go. So what I wanted to do is give myself an option to go 40 metres up the bank, tap some worms in, come back with a roach, skimmer, ard, whatever. Wasn't bothered, just wanted to get topped up in my weight. Now I've started short on pellets, not a bite again, and I'm thinking, right, that's understandable with pellets at the minute, they're not very good in that venue. Gone shallow and had 4 fish dead quick, and I thought, well, that's reasonable. One was on a fixed rig about a foot deep, and then the rest were on a jigger between 3 and 4 foot. I also set a jigger up about 6 foot deep, dropped that down, caught a carp. Now on the clay pit you can catch deep shallow, 6 foot. It used to be a tactic I used to use years ago on there, but it doesn't seem to really come into play a lot now because the weights are a lot bigger, the fish are a lot bigger. But you can catch on them iffy areas dead deep, say 6 foot. You can just lay there, flick your rig and keep feeding continuously. When you get some liners, just give it a lift and drop and you'll catch them carp. They're like 3 to 4 pounds, so they're worth catching. But I had that run and I've not caught, so I've just thought, right, I'm not going to sit there trying to force it shallow. I'm just going to go up this edge and catch what I can. Now for the next 2 hours I've just plodded away, catching the odd skimmer, the odd little roach, even a little perch. I've had one eyed on it. I've had a few stocky F1s on it. I've hooked the carp and lost it because I was fishing a bit lighter, but that's the thing, you got to fish a bit lighter with worms just to get these skimmers and stuff. But then with an hour to go, I've probably got 60 pound in the net, probably 30 pound of silvers, the rest F1s. And what I'd done with there is when I couldn't catch on the worms, I just topped it up, dropped back shallow, catch 1 or 2 and you won't get any more. Now what was strange was, and it doesn't really happen in this bay a lot, but late on in the match I've continued to feed it shallow. I remember a match the other month when Rob Swan fished it and he fished shallow front to back and caught them late. And what I mean, that old 8-inch shallow rig, so you can see him in your peg. It was really windy that day and it really miserable. And I was feeding my casters and all of a sudden it stopped being dead windy. The rain, sun picked up a bit and there was an odd shadow in my peg. I'm thinking, these have come up again. So I've picked my 8-inch rig up, slapped it in, and I've had a tremendous run to the end. I think I had £37, £39, but that was only 12 fish, massive F1s. I think I had 3 or 4 that were £4 to £5 a piece. Now, because it's on section points, I thought, right, I've got to maybe £100 there, which looking around the lake, it ain't fished great like I thought it would be. That's just a little experience on the lake, and I thought, right, so we weighed in. Kieran's won the lake with £141, brilliant result. He's won the festival as well, so I made up for him. Going back around, Christian was second on peg 36. He's caught some carp late again short. He's had 125. Now, Richie O'Connor's weighed he's weighed £96 in. Come to me, I've weighed £97. So that pound has made all the difference. If I fished cast a shallot all day, I may not have caught enough fish, but because I've fished this worms, I've just ticked over, given myself a chance, and I've ended up third on the lake. That's given me 4 points, and I've ended second in the festival behind Kieran. I think Steve Openshaw's third. I've just done him on weight, but it just shows that you can just, in these festivals, I learned that from Paul Holland. He does a lot at White Acres and he speaks to me a lot about that, and he just said a lot of the time when he wins his festivals, it's them days where he's just come third instead of 6th, and then the mentality of these festivals is all about points. Just keep putting fish in it and you'll be quite hard to beat. So made up about that one. Second in the festival, that's 6 people, can't grumble. I've had a great time, learned a lot about the clay pit again. I drew it on the Saturday after as well, so that's 6 matches on the trot at Weston. I haven't been on the complex, but I do enjoy the clay pit. Got some gears sort this week for Fishing Mania. I'll get a video up about I'm going to do carp shallows this week, and then we're going to be back on the bank and we're going to get some fishing videos done, put a bit more time into the channel. But I thank you for watching, all your comments, really appreciate them. I've had a lot of people come to me recently and saying they're really enjoying the videos, so I really appreciate that. And if you like this, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you on the bank soon. Cheers.